Hello, I am Reverend Irene Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to Generationally Speaking. Here at the table, we come and we discuss life issues, no matter what they might be. As we sit at the table with each generation, we all learn, we all grow, we all are inspired.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Generationally Speaking.
And they started to come around. And at that time, Maryland was doing the functional test for reading and for math. And at this school, the scores were, I think it was maybe like 2 to 3% of the entire school was passing. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, it hurt my heart that these kids didn't have basic math skills. So, and then when I moved here, the lesson plans were written out for us. I'm like, I'm not accustomed to that. I'm writing my own lesson plans. So fast forward, students are doing much better. The discipline issues calmed down. They knew that Coach Jay cared about them. And I think that's also helped because I became the basketball coach. And we were winning games and people were coming out of the woodworks to Andrew Jackson, seeing these things. Then they realized the talent with math. Then my students started passing those functional math tests. Then Janae went on from math 8 and math 7 to algebra 1. And I'm telling the teacher, this is what you have to do to reach them. And those kids still talk about that to this day. You're the best math teacher that I ever had. I hated math. I was scared of math, but you helped me get over that fear. So that was the culture shock. One, working with a staff that was predominantly Black, a school that was 99% Black, and students not, from my initial interaction with them, not having a love and a passion for learning. And I would tell them how we are Africans. We are the first mathematicians, the first scientists, the first physicians, the first astronomers. We were first in the things that mattered the most and shaped this world. Now we're first in things that don't matter the most and last in things that do. We're going to change that. And I would stand on top of the tables in the media center, and I'm preaching to all of the kids. And my colleagues, they still remember that. Jefferson, remember me standing on top of tables and parents coming up, yeah, we want our kids in Mr. Jefferson's class. That's how things started to change. Now, I had other colleagues who felt the same as I, so it wasn't just Mr. Jefferson. And we band together, and we worked together to change that culture. So all students started to love learning and want to do well. I have one student, he was 15 about to be 16 in 8th grade, and he was labeled retarded. No. That boy moved on, graduated high school, all of them still reach out to Coach Jay today. Some of them call me Pops because I was a father figure to them. I'm a godfather to some of their kids. Now, tell them don't call me Pop because I ain't that old, so don't go there. But that was the thing that they loved the most. And even after my basketball players left me, I went to their schools to make sure they got the work done. Percy Woods, interviewed him, an awesome basketball player, but his mother and father knew I cared more about academics and athletics. That was the most important thing. And when they interviewed him, it was the Gazette and another paper. They was like, who was your most memorable coach? He's like, Coach Jay. They were like, who is he? He's like my middle school coach. And they were like, why him? He said, because if Coach Jay was my high school coach, I wouldn't be going to a D2 because Coach Jay would have made sure I got my work done. He would have made sure I took the ACT and SAT on time, and I would be going to a Division I school. So Coach Jay, I'm sorry I let you down.
Wow.
Yes.
So that's that tenacity that you went to work with that and that desire to make sure that you lifted students. We can see that from your formative years, how it was interwoven into you to continue to reach out and pull up young people. So you go from being a teacher now well beloved, and you moved into a principal position. Wow, what an accomplishment. What was it when you got the word you're going to be promoted to principal?
So that was a process. And I can say that even before that, people thought that I was the principal because how I conducted myself, people who were new to the building. And my principal saw leadership potential in me. So they allowed me and afforded me opportunities to help me grow. So unlike other teachers during their lunch period, which contractually you don't have any duties, I did lunch duty. I did breakfast duty. If there was a need, I filled it in. And again, it wasn't just me. There were others who also filled in that gap. So I slowly climbed the ladder to being a grade level chair, a team leader, a department chair over the school improvement team, dean of students, dean of discipline, to athletic director. And then the opportunity came for new leaders, new schools, an opportunity where they sought out transformative leaders who would be placed in urban school settings and do things differently. I initially applied in 2005. No, I'm sorry. Yep, 2005. Made it all the way to the finalist round, but didn't get in. And my friends were upset. They blamed somebody. I'm like, no, I just wasn't ready. But they didn't forget me. They was like, we want you to work with such and such, such and such. I had a little sour grapes. So I didn't apply again until 2012. So you're talking about 7 years later. And I still didn't get as far as I wanted to. So I had to go the emerging leaders route. And I'm glad that I did, because I met my cohort members. We all are principals now. We all are like that. We support one another. So we went from emerging leaders then to aspiring principals, where we were in that program where you had a mentor principal, you ran the school, and then you became principal yourself. Not everybody who completes that program gets their own school. So I thank God that we did. And it was during that time period that my eyes were really wide open, because I saw how some people were there just to collect a check. They had outlived their time in the school system. For whatever reason, they were still there. And I'm not judging anyone, but they were still doing things as from their very beginning of their career. When our students, everyone says they're different from year to year, they're different from class to class. And you have to make that adjustment. So I wanted to take that and help teachers understand that. I made some mistakes, but at the end of the day, I'm happy at the fact that I was afforded this opportunity to help young teachers who had been in the profession for 5 or plus years, and then those who have been in the profession for 20 something years. And that's when I learned, just because you're the principal, you can't tell them to do this. You have to get them to buy into what the program is offering.
So now you've made it to principal, and you are well loved by your students and by your teachers and other administrators. So what is the role of a principal in a school?
The role of the principal is to be the instructional leader. In the past, it was being a manager. You just managed the building. You kept everybody safe. You made sure everybody was in class. Everybody had the resources that they needed as much as you possibly could. Now you are the instructional leader. So you have to know instruction. You have to know what good teaching is. If you have to know how to provide support and where to get those supports for those teachers who are struggling. So observations went from just a checkbox to now giving teachers feedback, looking at the types of questions that they ask and answer, planning lessons, assessments, how are students performing, analyzing and disaggregating that data, doing that on the small scale with the data team, and then sharing that information with the entire school. So that's the role of the additional role of the principal. So that was a lot for some people who only knew how to be building managers, and that was it.
Yeah, and that was the role of a principal. But in this 21st century, when our students are coming to school with a plethora of struggles, students are being sent to school, and perhaps that maybe they should be sent to some other type of school, but they nonetheless that you have all these students now inside the school building, and you're having, things are going well for you. Things are, you're dealing with the situations as they come up. But in one day, your life changes. Tell us about that.
Oh my gosh. So it was just so weird. So weird about that particular day. It was a Tuesday. It was September the 23rd. Never forget it. It started out unusual. I was dealing with with three crises at that particular morning. One, it was two young ladies while on their way to school walking. They said they were sexually assaulted by this strange man. Then we had an incident on the bus where one of my high-flying students, I don't know how she got access to it, but she had her mother's taser. So she was tasing kids on the bus. And we had several teachers who were out that day. Plus, I only had 2 of my 4 assistant principals in the building that day. So we're trying to manage those crises. And we conducted hall sweeps, which every school does in Prince George's County. A hall sweep is when the bell rings, teachers close their doors. Anyone caught in the hallway without a pass, depending upon the reason why they're out, you get detention or so forth, so on. And there was this one gentleman, we were already working to get him an alternative school because of his past behaviors and misdeeds that previous school year and his activities over the summer. So mom was initially for it, and then he talked her out of it. No, this gentleman I was his advocate the first year. Teachers wouldn't even let him in their classroom. And I'm like, you can't do that. He deserves the right to education just like everyone else. I would give him rides home when he was suspended. Mom would send him right back to school. So on this particular day, the student was caught in the hall sweep like other students were. Everybody else stopped. This one student did not stop. He, cursed me out, gave me the middle finger, and went on about his business. So I radioed because I had 2 school security officers. We call them SROs, or security assistants. And one was not present that day. So it was only this gentleman, who, by the way, is 6'6". And I point that out for a reason. So he's radioing me, and the front office is radioing me saying, this gentleman's cutting up. So he finally comes back. And, I'm giving everyone a pass. We're just writing down their names. Here's your pass to class. Some of them said, they gave reasons why they were late. So we said we will investigate. Now, this gentleman is always, again, just unruly, rowdy, just this close to my face. I'm like, just go to the front office. He's cursing out everybody. He's threatening my security assistant, who's 6'6". Parents in the front office, and everyone's like, Mr. Jefferson, he is just cutting up. He's refusing to go to the office. I'm like, tell him this is his last chance to get it right. So he needs to go to the front office. Now, mind you, already had 3 layers of police in the building dealing with those other 2 situations. So I had the sheriff's department there, Prince George's Police Department, Laurel Police Department, and school security from the school district. Their sergeant was there, all working on those two cases that I shared with you earlier. Now, they were using my office because they had to investigate and interview people. So I let them use my office. And I'm in the front office because I didn't have any secretaries. So I had my in-school suspension person working the front desk for me as my secretary because she did that for me during the summer. Now, my personal secretary that day, she was out sick because, her kids were sick. My seventh grade administrator who would have dealt with that young man, she was at a training. And I never forget, she kept saying, I could come back. I'm like, no, you need this training. We're not going to forego your professional development. I have this. Miss Martin and Mr. Young and I, we have this. So I'm sitting at the front desk, and I forgot this young man was back in the conference room. So he's coming out, being disrespectful, cursing me out. I'm like, look, I'm not your bro. I'm not your son. That's not how you talk to the principal. You have better respect to that, man. F you, all of this type of stuff. So I said, just go back to the conference room because I'm not ready to talk with you right now. I have a lot going on. Bell rings. We do another hall sweep. Again, I forget the young man's even in the office. He comes out one final time. It's about 10 something. So he, holding his pride, that walk that you said your brother had, he had this walk as well. So he's being rude, disrespectful. And I'm like, Miss Williams, I said, right now we have so much going on. Just write him a pass to class. So she said, okay. So she writes him a pass to class. And I leave because the bell is about to ring shortly. Plus, I had other obligations that I needed to do. And that's the last I see of him. And then about 12, we called this probation officer because he was on probation, as I said earlier, for various things. And he was wearing an ankle bracelet. So probation officer comes to the school and he's like, what's going on with that little N? Because that's what he called it. So I told him what was going on. He's like, well, put that S on paper and I'll arrest the little N and lock him up, because the judge had already told him that if he gets into any trouble at school, he's going to lock him up because he was in Cheltenham over the summer. So fast forward, the probation officer is still there. I'm like, why are you still here? I thought you had taken Daniel. He's like, no, Daniel said you hit him. What? That's the look I'm like, I didn't hit him, and two, I don't hit kids. And I said, when did this happen? In the conference room. His mother's on her way up here. I said, okay. So my assistant principal said he had been radioing me that entire time. And again, as I look back, everything that was happening according to the way God wanted things to unfold, because I never received a radio transmission from him. And I immediately, when the probation officer said that, my skills kicked in, my training kicked in. I called school security to let them know that a student has accused me of hitting him. So they sent that sergeant back down to the school. I called my boss to let him know. I called my mentor from the school district to let him know. And I called my mentor from my leadership program to let him know. So that's the protocol that is supposed to be followed. And I did that. Well, the mother finally shows up, and we've been radioing for them to go get this young man out of class. So I go get him. After a 10-minute wait, I go get him. Now, hindsight at 2020, was that the best move? No. But I'm the principal. Nobody's going to get him. That's what I'm doing. So I go get him out of gym. And I call his name. He's like, what I do now, man? What I do now? I'm like, nothing. Your mother's here. He like, oh, okay. So he comes with me. Now, mind, if I just beat you up, you're not going to come with me. You're not. So we walk and we're laughing and joking. And then when I get to the conference room, that's when I'm like, so Daniel, what's this about me hitting you? Oh, you did? What? Yeah, in the conference room, you hit me. I'm like, I did not hit you. So Sergeant Toppins is present. We had a police officer who was assigned to our school from the school district. Now he and I had history from the previous year. So he broke protocol. Rather than he let the school district and their school security investigate, he immediately called his bosses, District 3. And then District 3 told him, according to him, confine me to my office. And then he gets on the PA system and he announces that I'm no longer in charge of the school. Ms. Martin is. So I'm in complete shock. So when my boss gets there, my mentor gets there, they're like, that's not what's supposed to happen. You're not supposed to do that. So Sergeant Toppins gets the young man to write a statement. And before, she wanted, because they have ways and techniques that they get things out of students. So before she could start that, Corporal Smith, who was the police officer from the district, he stopped her from doing that. And he put her out, which he had no right to do. So she comes to my office and she takes a statement from me, which is what she was supposed to have done. So my boss says, okay, Dwight, come down to my office so we can talk about next steps. So my boss, this is his boss. So my boss, Dr. Ed Rhines, he's crying because he was like, I have to put you on administrative leave. And he was like, I've had to place other people on administrative leave and I knew they were guilty. He said, but you know. And it hurt him. So I'm meeting with Dr. Narcisse, who was the associate superintendent for my district. And he was like, Dwight, it's a process, it's protocol. This is how things have to unfold. So I'm like, okay, I'm upset, I'm scared, but I'm like, okay, I know I didn't hit him. Everything is going to be okay. Then people started lying and, making false statements. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I didn't have an attorney. I didn't even reach out to the union because I knew I was innocent. I knew I had not done anything. So it wasn't until the Sergeant Toppin, she worked at the school where the union president was the principal. So he called me, he's like, Dwight, what's going on? So I told him, like, dude, call Doris. We need to protect you. I'm like, I didn't do anything. He said, doesn't matter. We need to protect you. So I'm like, okay. So I'm getting these updates unbeknownst to me. The next day, at the end of the afternoon, the nurse goes to the assistant principal. Now word has gotten out that Mr. Jefferson has hit Daniel. So the nurse is like, well, when? And she's like, well, no, he came to me at this time and said that he was slapboxing with another student. And I asked him, did he tell an administrator? And he said no, because he didn't want to get into any trouble. And they asked her, what did you do? Why did you treat him? She said his face was red and I gave him a frozen paper towel and sent him back to class. So mind you, I didn't find out until later that when the probation officer went upstairs with the assistant principal for 8th grade is when he ran into Daniel. And Daniel was like froze in his tracks. He's like, what are you doing here? He's like, the principal called and told me you've been cutting up and he's about to suspend you. Man, F him. Well, and he's like, why are you in the hallway? Why you have that paper towel on your face? Well, I'm going to the nurse. Why are you going to the nurse? Because Mr. Jefferson hit me. That was the first time that he told anybody that I hit him. The media said he told a teacher. No, that never happened. He told only the probation officer, only when he encountered him in the hallway, and this probation officer told him he was there to get him because I was suspending him. So I'm at home on leave. I'm getting updates from the school, from staff members telling me what's going on. I'm praying everything is okay. I go to Bible study first time, 10 a.m. session. Started learning a lot. Just quiet, sitting back, observing. Then I finally open up and I share with you all what's going on. And unbeknownst to me, you all have been watching me that entire time, and we prayed. And he's like, you all said everything is going to be okay. That was really my first personal interaction with you, Reverend Smith. So as I'm waiting to find out things, and I'm told that on October 14th, staff members are going before the grand jury. I'm like, grand jury? So I'm like, how did this go from this? So, because I give a statement to the police. And as a principal, you're making so many decisions throughout the day. And I'll never forget the young lady who was questioning me. And, she was very rude, by the way. And I know sometimes they play good cop, bad cop, but she was just rude. So she asked me, well, what happened when Daniel came back? I'm like, Daniel didn't come back. I forgot Daniel did come back. And they said, because I said he never came back, that I lied. And I'm like, you don't know how many decisions you make during the day. And I was like, check the cameras. You'll see I was never with him by myself, which I wasn't. I said, check the cameras. The cameras will tell the whole damn story, is what I told it would tell it. I'm just surprised that you all have me down here as much as I've done for this kid and for other students. And then for him to say that I hit him, that's not something that I do. I help children. I don't hit children. That's not in my nature to do that. So again, the story had not broken yet. That was September 23rd. Went down to the police station a week and a half later because I was going without an attorney. That's how confident I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. But the union was like, no. My friends were like, no, go with an attorney. So I went with the attorney from the union. Everybody who was a seasoned criminal attorney said, all he should have said was, my client has no statement, and walked out. As I went through that journey, didn't understand then, he was doing what God wanted him to do because God took me through that for a reason. And fast forward to Bible study. I'll never forget. That's when I'm sitting there. You got me involved and engaged. You assigned us the mountains.
Yes.
And I had Mount Sinai. And Exodus was my chapter. And Brother Brown, Brother Murphy, I remember all of them. We all had mountains, and I'm studying. I'm pouring myself into this. I'm studying my mountain and Exodus, and how what God wanted the Israelites to do was to rely solely on Him and be appreciative of Him. And that's what I was not doing. I was relying on man to get me out of this situation.